to start off, tonight we're going to talk about some revenue generation opportunities. Some of these things that it's not quite rugby, but things that we've got to do in order to make rugby happen. So I'm going to just dive in first. Our first presenter here is Jody Rodriguez from 11 Events out of Regina. She's got some connections to the rugby community and has worked with rugby organizations as well. And she's going to do a little presentation for us on some of the things to keep in mind when you are planning an event for your club as a fundraiser. So Jody, I'll let you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm going to share my screen here. Can you see it? It can be used to create resonance. Yeah, good. Okay. So, hi everybody. My name is Jody. I am the owner of 11 Events. I started my company in 2017 here in Regina. I have a background in corporate conferences prior to that, and then moved into the hospitality industry for a few years before going out on my own. Sound okay? Everybody can hear me? So good? Okay, thanks. So I hold my CMP designation out of the Events Industry Council in Washington, D.C. And I also am a certified digital event strategist out of PCMA in Chicago. And my connection with the rugby community is my husband is a rugby player, an ex-rugby player. His name is Fausto. Maybe some of you guys know of him. He was played in the Venezuelan national selection team, and he was with the Prairie Fire and with the Rogues, and now he's a ref, I believe, with Andrew he's refed with. So that's my connection with rugby. So I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Okay, so you want to have a fundraiser. So let me tell you about fundraisers. I'm sure you've all been involved maybe in a fundraiser. I'm sure you've attended a fundraiser. They're an interesting journey. They can be costly, time-consuming, energy draining, and they can also be inspiring and community enhancing and very profitable. They're exhausting and they're exhilarating. And for some nonprofits, they can be a major revenue source. So I want to ask you all a question. Does anyone know the difference between a fundraiser and a friend raiser? Yeah. So typically the goal of fundraisers is to raise money for your organization, while friend raisers, which can be also called non-ask events or cultivation events, are a great opportunity for your club to meet new supporters or sponsors in a comfortable and relaxed setting. Friend raisers still have a very definite fundraising purpose. Their goal is to be a lead generation tool for your sponsor funnel or your supporter funnel. And instead of resulting in funds, though, they should deliver a contact list of new friends for your clubs. But the only way to achieve that goal of new friends is to be serious and methodical in your event planning efforts with guest data capture, working the room, and making follow-up calls that get people involved after the event. So both are costly and both can have an amazing return on investment. So I love this rugby saying, to go forward, you must go backwards. And that's also true with event planning. You start with your end goal in mind, and what are the objectives and the purpose of the event, and then you work backwards from there. You determine your theme, your budget, your guest experience, your sponsorship, your entertainment, the risk, the timelines, the critical path, and so on. One of the most common reasons that fundraisers fail is that they haven't allowed enough time to establish relationships with donors or sponsors, but they decide to have the fundraiser anyway. Building the donor and sponsor relationships require time and are incredibly important to your budget. Otherwise, you're just simply paying for a big party. So I am going to talk about the planning process, but first I wanted to lay a foundation and the lead up to a successful event, which should happen a year before your fundraiser. So before anything happens, nonprofits have to look at sponsorship, their event sponsorship. Now this is different than sponsorship for uniforms or things within the club. Event sponsorships are sort of a different bag, I would say. So ideally your sponsorship romance is already happening in your clubs. And this isn't the first step. It's setting the goals and objectives are, but without the sponsors and the partners and the supporters and friends within your club circle, you won't have a successful fundraiser. So sponsorship and supporter stewardship is a constant cycle. In the best case scenario, it's always being cultivated and cared for so that when the time comes for a fundraiser, it isn't awkward asking for money. So here are some tips to help you cultivate sponsorship and supporters. So number one, determine your target audience. Research companies and organizations with a strong presence in your community that align with your cause. So for instance, if you wanted to ask Sask Energy for money to sponsor your event, and quite often these organizations will have who they support in their community investment page on their website. You'll see that they like people and food security, or sorry, vulnerable people and food security and Indigenous issues. So they probably aren't a great fit, and you don't have to bother asking companies like that. Number two, leverage your personal relationships. Ask your committees and your board for contacts that they may have in your target audience. This is a huge thing for me because fundraiser clients will come to me that want to have a fundraiser, and I always ask them, oh, is your board on side? Because the board is critical to selling sponsorships, buying and selling tickets, calling new partners, and helping in the promotion of the fundraiser. They should be the ones doing a lot of that contact work, and they won't be comfortable doing it either. There might be only a couple of them that are good at it, but it's really important to get them all on board, and you can provide sort of training materials that will help them feel more comfortable. Sorry, I forgot to advance my slide. So there's number three. What are you offering? So prepare a well thought out program that offers a variety of options. Think back to previous years, what worked and what didn't work. And then you let them base their sponsorship opportunities on what their business needs are. Maybe they don't want a corporate table of 10. Maybe they don't have 10 people that would want to go to the fundraiser. So it's more important to help them. Sorry, what happened with my, sorry. Maybe they would rather welcome the guests before the dinner or address the audience instead. Maybe that has more value to them. So always make the sponsorship package tailored to each organization's business needs, and stay as current as possible. Don't offer the same old thing year after year. Provide them a stronger value proposition, like they can have some kind of business development opportunity, make sure their brand is differentiated and they're exclusive for certain things within the fundraiser, and let them brag about themselves a bit in front of the guests, whether they address the guests or welcome the guests or give swag to the guests, things like that. Understand your sponsor's motivations. So the event and its cause must align with the key messages of potential sponsors, their brand, and where they allocate their community investment dollars. Don't bother asking a corporation for money if their focus is helping elders. They probably won't give to a rugby club. Craft your ask, prepare a concise cover letter and package to include all the pertinent information that you need. The event date, the time, the location, the theme, the name of the organization, the mission, the ask, the sponsorship tiers, your contact information, and when they will be called for a follow-up. Number 6 is outreach. Previous sponsors, reference sponsors, and new sponsors. They're all sort of out there just waiting. So 20 cold calls to a new potential sponsor may only result in 1 meeting. So it's easier, they always say it's easier to keep a current customer than to find a new customer. It's the same with a sponsor. It's easier to keep that sponsor who likes you, who's on your side, but you have to steward it constantly throughout the year and not just 2 months before an event. Follow up. Assume no one will contact you directly. You must follow up with every single lead that you send your package to. Corporations are being asked constantly for sponsorship dollars, and you have to be that one fundraiser that stands out by following up repeatedly. Be creative. Maybe a potential sponsor can help in a different way. In-kind sponsorships are a wonderful way to take advantage of expertise, vendor partnerships or rentals, AV, printing, anything like that. Maybe they can provide volunteers or swag for attendees. So deliver on your offer. Have sponsorship agreements ready to go. Treat them well during the event, and don't forget to thank them after the event. And then soon after that, start cultivating that again for the following year or any other small events that may be coming up. Always be enthusiastic. So smile through the phone. They may not be this year's sponsor, but you're building a relationship towards future possibilities. And then finally, once organizations see the others jumping on the bandwagon to give dollars, they tend to want to join in too. And so this is because events, when properly run, show a compounding effect. If you hold a great event, your guests will tell their friends and bring them to the event next year. If you treat sponsors really well and cultivate them over the course of the year, they will introduce you to other businesses in their network that may want to sponsor your event. Fundraising events are still fundraising, and all the rules of fundraising apply. You need to build relationships with sponsors. You need to cultivate your supporters. You need to make asks, even in person and on the phone, not just through email. So this is another one of my favorite things. So this is my life every day. And so, and it's true because today, for instance, I just had a big client pull out because they don't feel that right now what's happening in the world with the war and everything, they don't want to throw a $200,000 party, an awards party. And so, okay, we did a bunch of work, but now you're canceling, and I totally get it. I wholeheartedly agree. But it's just like, it's crazy, crazy, crazy all the time. So planning events is stressful. So they say that event planning is consistently in the top 5 most stressful careers. So that's after enlisted military soldiers, firefighters, police officers, and airline pilots. So, and why is that? Because if something can go wrong, it probably will. It's Murphy's Law. Something's going to go wrong, and there are 100 details happening all at the same time with an event. And so that's where the trick is in order to make it successful. So let's move to the planning process and what end-to-end event project management is, and how can you avoid these stressful situations in your own club's events. So the first thing a club should do is determine if the event of a fundraiser is feasible. Event or fundraiser is feasible. So what's the history of prior events? Did they raise money? Did they have good attendance? Did they meet the goals of having the gathering? Is it financially feasible? What's the cost? What is the possible revenue? Are there enough human resources to plan and implement the event? It takes a lot of hours to plan an event. Are people not sure of what they need to do? What is the audience for this event? Are you actually going to have people that want to come? Is there an appetite for it? What are the risks? For example, could there be another variant that pops up? And then if you're having an event at a different venue, are you going to lose that money? What's the cancellation? There's a lot of things to think about before you even start planning. Will the food and beverage costs outweigh the ticket prices? What are the other events happening during that weekend in the area? What kind of competition are you going to have? So once you've determined that your event is feasible, objectives and goals are next. So what are the goals of the event and how will you reach those goals through various objectives? Are you there to make money? Are you there to make friends? Are you there to hand out awards? Is it an end of season celebration or is it just a ladies' night out? The next thing after that is to consider risk. So it's an ongoing process of assessing the risks that may threaten your guests, the event itself, the club, or the partners and suppliers. We need to apply the appropriate measures to manage the probability and consequences of such risks. Some examples are power outages, food poisoning, stormy weather for an outdoor event, pandemic, injury, things like that. So you have to be prepared, you have to have a response plan, you have to have a recovery plan, and you have to mitigate and manage all that comes your way. So you should have a risk management plan. That's one of the first things to do. And it's a living document that all involved in the planning are aware of. And it has a chain of command that is clearly stated so that if something goes sideways, everybody involved knows what to do and who to talk to, who's calling 911. Who's talking to media, who is whatever. So that's all very important to think of ahead of time. Next is budget. So responsible financial management is critical for the success of your fundraiser. Determine whether the event must make a profit. Can it be revenue neutral or can it be operated as a financial loss and it's more of a friend raiser? So include everything and always add a 10% contingency. Include taxes and gratuities. Everybody's gratuities are different. And include service or labor charges. A lot of people don't think of adding this in and it all adds up quickly. And rely on your history of other events for your meal guarantee so that you're not over ordering food, overpaying for food, things like that. The next thing is managing your stakeholder relationships. So you have to identify and categorize who they are. They're important because they can have an impact on the success of your event or who can be affected by the event. So these are anyone from the event owner, the club, your board, your planning committee, your venue, your suppliers, your guests, anyone who is directly or even indirectly involved in your event. So other community associations, things like that. Determine the theme of your event and how all the elements will fit into the theme as far as programming, entertainment, food, beverage, decor, etc. Again, is the theme feasible? Does it make sense? What are the current trends? Oops. Yeah, that's it. Sorry. What are you competing with? Always check dates so that you are assured of good attendee numbers and not running into conflicting events in the area. Once your theme, budget, risk, purpose, those things are figured out, then we move on to your critical path. So it's just a timeline of how things are going to get done. And I always start at the back, start at the end and kind of work backwards, again, just like rugby. I like to break down what needs to be done with a work breakdown structure. This all comes from project management, and it's just showing you what the big rocks are. Then from all those big rocks, you go into a detailed critical path of what needs to be done. And it's like a domino effect. Once this is done, then this has to be done, and so on and so on and so on. And so just organization is the key for managing a project like this. And then the logistics start. So there's hundreds of details to figure out: confirming a date, finding a venue, negotiating the rental price, saving the date, cards, finding entertainment and contracting, getting quotes for rentals. Are you having indoor, outdoor elements, selling tickets, guest lists, VIPs, sponsorship management and fulfillment, finding an MC, menu design, spreadsheets, printing programs, signage, security, liquor license, tent permits, insurance, sourcing awards and swag, event promotions, social media posts, monitoring guest numbers, checking your budget. It's constant work. One thing to mention, if you're thinking of renting event space for a special fundraiser that you wouldn't hold in your clubhouse, venues are anxious to get their business back on the books. The hotels and conference venues, meeting places, they took a hard hit over the pandemic. And so they want people to be booking things. So we don't know what's going to happen in the next month to 6 months. We don't know. So always check the contracts really well, so that you can cancel if you have to, and without too much penalty. Hopefully no penalty if it's, at least 3 to 4 months out. So as the event date approaches, don't forget the final guest numbers, special guest accommodations, dietary restrictions or sensitivities, and of course, updating your risk management plan in case there's a severe allergic reaction to any of the snacks. Don't you love Beyonce, the snack lady? And it's finally the event day. All the prep is done and you have an action plan for site setup and tear down, and volunteers are waiting in the wings. So how do we all stay on the same page? So I use something called an event specifications guide, or sometimes known as a programming or production schedule. And it has each significant function and activity that needs to happen before, during, and after the event. And it's organized in the correct order so that each part happens smoothly and in a logical progression. So by event day, the planning committee is tired and feeling overstretched. So this helps with brains that are holding too many details inside them. And so it's easy, everybody has it, in a little binder or on a clipboard or something. And it's just, oh, what's happening now? What's happening now? There's a schedule and it's all just running smoothly. Also, if something goes wrong, your risk management plan is also attached to that. So it has all the plan Bs in one place. For tear down for events, the steps are simply reversed, but everybody's tired. So ensure that all the safety precautions are adhered to. Insurance is very important. Any event planner that you hire should have at least $2 million worth of insurance that they can put you on a certificate with. I know Andrew had sent me some of your national rugby insurance. I took a look at it. It doesn't look as comprehensive as the insurance that I carry, so I would look into that a little bit more. You might need more of an umbrella coverage. Unless you're in a venue, for instance, a hotel or a banquet hall, they probably have insurance. And if you can get onto their insurance, then that would be the most advisable thing to do.
Could you perhaps elaborate on that just a touch? What do you think we're missing? I'm actually a member of the National Insurance Committee, so it'd be good to know.
I have it open on my other screen, so
we can connect offline if you'd like, because that's
sure.
a really curious conversation to have.
So I actually had a tough time getting insured. and I'm not sure why, because typically I have all my events in insured venues. I mean, the odd time I have outdoor festivals and things like that, but yeah, for sure, if you want to email me, we can talk about it. There's many different kinds of insurance, especially in the States. Canada's a little bit less restrictive as far as that goes. So yeah. But yeah,
sorry, we tend to not sue people as easily.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying I was surprised that it was hard for me to get insurance. So yeah, so I'm just trying to think of the things that mine cover. Mine also, sorry, I should have prepared that. I can send that information to Andrew, and he can send it out to all of you then, of the specific insurance that I have. So
I think the only extra thing we might need, I guess, is if we're having if we're hosting an international game here, then we'd have to find out what kind of insurance we need on that regard. Unless, again, we had a really big venue like Investors Group Field where they have that kind of coverage already. Most places, when you sign a contract, part of that is their insurance coverage within their contracts, but I'm not sure of those details.
And so, like, maybe having a sporting event is different than having a fundraising event. I don't know what kind. The National Rugby insurance is probably perfect for that sporting event type of thing. Mine is, you know, covering stuff because there's liquor involved and because there's, you know, things like that happening. So maybe they're different. I don't know. So do you guys feel like this? Because I feel like this right now. So while all these logistics are happening and your insurance is in place and your permits are all in place and everything, you have to also be promoting and marketing your events so that people actually come to them. So it's essential to promote it well and to promote it often, and you want to create that FOMO in the community so that there's lots of interest generated for your club, and so that the community sees value in what you're doing as a club also. So make sure you send out save the dates, create a buzz, keep pushing the social media posts, and always fulfilling that sponsorship promises and things so that they're feeling valued. Sorry, just moving along here. So what about social events? They follow the same path as fundraisers, the same path as other kinds of events, but it's the committees and the planners' job to coordinate with all the staff and the vendors and the venue, the equipment, that the consumables, everything is safe during the event, before the event, during the event, and after the event. So some things you always have to consider with social events are crowd levels and commotion. If liquor is involved, popular events can get disorderly. Always make sure you have maybe some volunteer security people that know, you know, how to handle things, how to calm things down, how to talk people down, and it's just things run smoothly. And everybody needs to know who those people are so that they can be summoned quickly. Watch out for unsteady equipment, falling, tripping hazards. They have to be eliminated. For outdoor events, you have to be watching for inclement weather, making sure you have a plan B ready to go, possibly an indoor venue ready to go if you need to seek shelter or change the whole event plan. medical assistance. Always have somebody around that knows CPR, first aid, things like that. That's important as well. And then one of the most important things is food and beverage safety. So whether it's a venue that's catering or there's multiple food vendors coming in, always make sure you have the proper certified health licenses, and that hot food is kept hot, cold food is kept cold, and that hot food is only out there for 2 hours maximum. COVID protocol, things like that. Things have changed. You're not going to have necessarily the big buffet anymore with, you know, without sanitizer, you know, for instance. So things like that have changed. So again, with a social event, you still need your risk management plan, you still need your insurance, your licenses, your permits, anything like that. And so I think that's about it. It's 8:04 already. I wasn't sure how long I had to speak for, and I wasn't sure how long I would be speaking for because I didn't go through my slide deck. I kept getting interrupted. So there's lots of event planners out there to hire if you need some help. It saves a ton of time and money and stress for your clubs and your committees. For instance, I do also consulting. So if you only want like a few hours of help just to make sure that you're on track, and I can give you tools to use. A lot of event planners are doing that now too, because end-to-end management is costly and people have to watch their budgets. So the other thing I wanted to quickly mention is virtual is always great to have as a backup. You can have an online auction, an online raffle. There's many things to do that way, so that if something does go sideways, at least you have that bringing in some money that can still go on if people can't gather for some reason. So yeah. Does anybody have any questions?
Jody, just while we're on the event planner thing, like typically, like I think that's a trap that a lot of smaller organizations can get into, is we'll do it ourselves to save costs. Like,
yeah,
would you say the sort of red flags as to I should be hiring an event planner would be? And then also, like, how perhaps would a volunteer club go about sort of engaging some?
so depending on where you're located. So I think this is not just Saskatchewan, correct? This is Alberta, Manitoba as well. So of course in Alberta, your event planners are much more costly than they are in Saskatchewan. I think you just have to sort of call a few, see what they say, see what their rates are. Everybody's rates are a little bit different. See what they provide. See how they can help you without breaking your bank. You know, they can do, a trained event professional can do a lot of has a lot of expertise to save time doing things that maybe a committee is not as quick to do, just because an event planner will know exactly, okay, this, and this has to be done this week, and it's done. And then, you know, you can move on to the next thing. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that's great. That's very helpful. I'm just wondering as well, just to sort of from the volunteer sort of perspective, like what's something that like perhaps that you might have experienced that you've come into an event halfway through, they've sort of realized they're in over their heads. Maybe something that some of our clubs could identify as an oh shit moment. We need to hire somebody to help us out. Like, is it sort of something you could identify there that maybe help?
Yeah, I think time is the biggest killer. If you don't start early enough and don't allow yourself enough time, then people are running around with their hair on fire. So it's it's a lot of balls to juggle in the air all at the same time. And it's really, it's a logical progression of steps that you have to follow. And when you follow those logical steps, then everything should work. If you find that, you know, you're spending way too much money, like a lot of things, you know, you get distracted by the sideshow. Oh, the decor, well, what are we going to do? And we're going to have this balloon install here, and we're going to have, you know, this and that, you know, but you haven't even talked to a venue yet, or you haven't checked dates out, if there are any dates available for the, you know, your event. So it's just a logical sort of common sense progression of how to manage the project, really, and not let that scope creep.
I have found the biggest thing is a paper trail. Like, just because someone said something doesn't mean it's in writing. So get every single thing in writing so that you can pull that piece of paper out and go, here it is. And then you can move on, or you can share it, or you can move forward. I think John Dreger has a question.
Yeah, John's got his hand up here, so go ahead, John. Oh, we're not hearing you, John.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good now. Thanks.
Okay, I just had you on my earbud there and it wasn't picking anything up. You mentioned 50-50s, raffles and stuff like that. And being a sports team, especially a men's sports team in Saskatchewan, nonprofit status, it's borderline impossible for us to get any approval from Sask Gaming or Sask Lotteries for such an event or such a thing. So what's your recommendation there?
So you are a nonprofit?
Yeah, well, as our team, we're registered. It's like, I can't remember the exact legalese on it, but it's a corporate nonprofit. I can't remember how it is. I'd have to look at it.
So I actually partner with a company out of Kelowna. It's called Trellis, and it is an event tech startup.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so you can use Trellis. They have all the licenses. They look after everything. You don't need to do anything. I partner with them, so if you want, like, I can build the web page for you, build the silent auction, build the raffle, all that, and then you get a percentage discount off of Trellis's fee, and it's super slick.
Yeah, actually, a good buddy of mine who's also a former rugby player, he works for them as well, Paul Birch. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah. So he sold his company to Trellis.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So that's a way to get around it. So if you have a fundraiser that's in person, which is typically what happens with my clients, they have their in-person fundraiser, and then we engage Trellis to do the silent auction and, you know, the 50-50 or raffle tickets or whatever. So that silent auction, if that is open for the week prior, or your raffle the week prior, and people that aren't able to attend the event, they can still log in and bid on auction items or whatever, and it stays open for as long as you want, and that's how you can raise more money too, instead of just limiting it to that 6-hour event.
Cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And Trellis is a great company. Like, they're Canadian, they offer great support. You don't have to go through me. You can go straight to them. They're great.
Awesome. Any other questions for Jody? Awesome. Well, I'm not hearing any. So obviously you've been very informative, Jody, and you've answered everybody's questions before they even had the chance to ask them. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and presenting tonight. We really appreciate it. Feel free to stay on and listen to the rest of the presentations, but if you've got other places to be, you're more than welcome to hit the haze. But thanks again.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope it it provided a couple of nuggets of gold there for you.
Oh, hey,
Yeah, we got another question here.
Sorry, it's John butting in. I should have waited my turn. I apologize. Are you able to email out your slideshow?
Sure.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
because there was trying to screen capture it, and then I missed the last couple of them. So
Okay.
yeah,
Sure.
thank you.
We'll grab it from Jody, John, and we'll make sure that it goes up on the website in the resource folder for you guys.
Cool, yeah, because we have an event this weekend. It's my first time planning it, and a lot of the stuff you said was, kind of hit home on it. I was like, oh man, I wish I thought of some of that beforehand.
Good. Well, hopefully you have enough time to get it all done. And I'll look into that more into that insurance. I'll let you guys know when I send this to Andrew. I'll put what I'm covered for in my insurance, because it's quite a thick policy. So
Aren't they
Thanks,
all?
yeah.
Cool. Well,
Okay.
awesome. Again, thanks again, Jody. I'll let you take it away, Pat.
Okay, thanks again, Jody. That was really good to hear.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Take care, everyone.
We're gonna transition straight into the fundraising aspect of this. We've got very fortunate to have a former national team player, Mitch Gudgeon, to come join us. Mitch has also basically worked in the fundraising and partnership development space in his own private company, and is now in a position as the strategic partnership coordinator for Queen's University, I believe. He's got a vested interest in supporting the rugby community, and has generously agreed to give us a bit of a quick rundown and some sort of ways to identify assets that clubs have. And without further ado, thanks very much, Mitch. I'll throw it over to you.
Great, thanks, Patrick, and hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. Let's get set up my screen here in a second. See everybody, hopefully. There we go. Okay, yeah, as Pat mentioned, I have a pretty deep background in sponsorship and strategic partnerships. I'll get into some of the details in a second, but today I kind of wanted to give you the sponsorship 101, identifying assets, developing an asset inventory, the valuation, as well as targeting potential sponsors. So I'll start with who I am, but then we'll get into the stuff there, and then we'll have a bit of a breakout session too. Given the numbers here, we might actually just be able to do it kind of live as a group. So yeah, as Pat mentioned, currently I'm the Director of Partnerships and Special Projects at Smith School of Business, Queen's University. Hold an MBA from there as well. As you can see with the great photo there, I was a former national player, played on the men's 7s and 15s team, capped a couple times for both of them. And I founded a company called Integral Marketing Strategies. I guess it would have been in 2015, which did partnership development, sponsorship strategy for a number of organizations. I also worked for an organization called the 2010 Group, Torque Strategies. This was an organization that did all the fundraising for the Vancouver 2010 Olympics. I've had the opportunity and honor of working with a number of great organizations, everyone from, the Canadian Olympic team to the Jays, Canadian Tire, and also worked with, more local organizations such as Firefit Canada. If some of you guys are firefighters, you would know about them, and looking at Queen's football, and also worked from the corporate side too. So, worked with Canadian Tire, IBM, and others, develop partnerships from, a couple $1,000s all the way up to, some of them are $50 million plus relationships. So, pretty cool to see all these go through. So we'll get into sort of the assets and asset inventory piece. So basically an asset inventory is just a summary of all the assets available to a partner. And this is really a way for you as an organization or as a club to actually track what's available, what's being used, the number that's there. And this actually will help you with, when we get to the next slide on valuation, It'll help you understand what is the total value of assets that you have available, you know, within your club or organization to be available to partners. So there's a couple different types of assets to consider. One would be what we call tangible assets. So these would be things like signage, you know, logo on the jersey, trophy named after a partner, you know, any kind of media assets or digital assets you might have, like logos on the website, or, you know, if you do have any kind of commercials or something like that available to them. These are more the tangible side of things. Intangible assets, these are things like, you know, the story that you could tell. You know, you could look at, you know, access to business through your club, the brand of your organization. You know, yeah, and going to the story side, like possibly you want to tell a cool story with a partner to the community that you have access to through your club. And then you look at other ones like value in kind. And so, you know, these are the fees that you're possibly already paying to an organization, such as accounting fees, legal fees, signage, even just buying beer for your club. And any way that you can get these as a cost offset and get that value in kind is really just more money back in your pocket at the end of the day. In terms of sponsorship valuation is really just, like I talked about before, the assessment of all the assets that you have access to within your club, and then understanding what the value of each individual asset is, and then, you know, how many of each of these individual assets you would have, and that would sum up to be the total valuation that you have. And by working, you know, utilizing these assets in different ways and you know, combining them in different ways, you're going to build sponsorship packages that are customized to a client, that delivers value for them. And you can also then understand what is the cost that you would end up charging them. What's the dollar value that end up charging them. A lot of times with some of the smaller organizations and these, you know, clubs or other things like that, it sometimes is actually easier just to work backwards based on how much you need in terms of sponsorship dollars, or how much you'd want in terms of sponsorship dollars. Then build out your inventory and you know, start seeing how much would be reasonable for each of these assets to actually charge a partner. Things such as category exclusivity, you know, having access to a larger audience, more fans at games, whatever it may be, larger social media following, you know, prestige of your organization, potential media coverage, and other things like that. These all increase the value of the sponsorships and the assets that you have. So these are sort of like what we would call like multipliers. So, you know, if a sign is worth, you know, a couple $100, but your brand is really strong and you have 10,000 followers on Twitter, then, you know, it's going to be worth a little bit more than somebody who's got, you know, only a handful of followers. Targeting potential sponsors. So, you know, really it comes down to the value proposition for the partners. You know, what's in it for them at the end of the day. You know, a lot of the times at the club level, you know, it's a little different than when you're working with like a Canadian Olympic team or something like that, where it's interesting because the Canadian Olympic team actually just has stories to tell. There's not a ton of real assets that you actually have, because often games are in other countries or things like that. But when you have actually a club, a lot of stuff is more centered on the local and sort of the tangible assets that are available to you. So considerations when you're targeting potential sponsors, they're probably going to be mostly philanthropic, you know, more on the sort of donation side than actual true sponsorships. You know, start with those affiliated with your club, whether they're, you know, alumni, whether they're, you know, people that are spending money with your club already, or you know, you're spending money with them, and generally focus on the local organizations. That also helps big time, and you know, you can generate a lot of value through that. So I know that was like a really quick run through, Patrick. I don't know if that was almost too quick to go through, so apologies if it was. I know you said keep it really short and sweet and keep to a couple topics, but I want to just do a bit of a breakout session here, and maybe first I can ask if there's any clarifications you needed on anything I shared thus far. But wanted to do a bit of a breakout session, but we can kind of do it while we can send camera here. Any questions quickly? No? Okay. Okay, so what I want you to do is, we'll take about 10 minutes here. And what I want you to do first is sort of follow along here. So first is, take out a piece of paper, or you can do it on your computer or whatever's there. Identify 5 unique asset categories for sponsorship. So this could be, signage on the field is a really easy one, right? That's a pretty low hanging fruit. But you could get creative with something. Maybe there's a trophy in your club that's, is named after a former player that's done a ton for your club over the years. Maybe there's an opportunity to put a partner's name on that too. So just start off and take 2 seconds, put 5 unique assets categories for sponsorship. After that is actually outline the number of each of these unique assets that you would have. So, like I use a signage example, you could say there's 10 potential signs that you can have around your field. When it comes to a beer garden, you might have a title partner on a beer garden or something like that. So there's only one of those available. So outline those for each of those 5 unique asset categories. When you do this for your organization, you might have like 15 or 30 different categories here available, but we're just going to do a short and sweet version of this right now. And then next, what you'll do is for each of these unique asset categories, signage, title partner, the beer garden, etc., put a dollar figure next to it. And you can, for the sake of the exercise today, feel free to put more of an arbitrary dollar figure or something that you feel would be appropriate, and then use them and calculate that total valuation. So based on those unique assets, 5 unique assets, say $100 for a sign. There's 10 signs. There's $1,000 right there in signage that you'd have access to. And then, add up all those unique assets and get that total valuation for your sponsorship package. So we'll start there. And then after that, when people are kind of ready, let's go down into the last one. And maybe we'll talk about the first 3 first. And then, we'll go into identifying some potential sponsors, in your local communities that could, you could have as potential partners for a package.
Feel free, everybody, to use the chat function to dump your ideas in as well, just so we can all sort of play along.
Do you want us to have some verbal discussion as well, or just throw some stuff out in the chat?
Either works. Feel free to talk about stuff. You have some funny ideas, good ideas.
Well, mentioning, just so if we want to look at the side of a club, since most of us either we're part of a club and or provincially, is the word signage. Like signage to me has like, you can do like 10 different things under signage, right? Like whether it be the scoreboard, whether it's sleeves on goal pads, whether it's the flags along the field, like all these little signages, you've got all these opportunities to have all on one, or it's $100 for this signage, or it's $50 for each one of these small signage posts. So I'm not sure how detailed or how you kind of want to break that down as a discussion.
I'll let you choose how detailed you want to get. I know we're just doing a quick exercise here. Like when I've built a valuation tool, I think we had things like 100 different possible options for tangible assets. And that depends on the organization you're working with too, right? So and you're exactly right, Liz. Like it could be the signs on the side of the field are a different value than the signs on the side of the big signs on the side of the field. Maybe there's something when you're walking in on the tent is branded something, could be a sign. You have signs in your clubhouse possibly. There's lots of different signage options there.
Well, I think some classic ones, at least for locally here in Manitoba, that are always up for thought, yes, jerseys. Then there's sponsors for your shorts, sponsors for your warm-up shirts, sponsors for your water bottles, if you want to kind of break everything down, because for the most part with clubs, right? They're ran on membership dues and any little trickle bits of sponsorship money you can get. And I think for a large part, a lot of our clubs are suffering in that financial aspect, or just that support and getting their monies in for us to have that equipment, to get those special nuggets of, small value amounts add up to big value amounts for a club to keep afloat. So I think for me, water bottles, warm-up shirts, shorts are just some classics that are always on the front for basic day-to-day living.
Totally. Yeah, I like that. It would be great to hear some creative ideas. Ashton, do you have something there?
Yeah, so we've actually been working on this, me specifically, quite extensively. So we actually had both our fields maintained this year. We had what we called gold level sponsors. So we got new post pads, the fields named after the company. And then as well, we got a partnership with a local brewery. Yeah. So we're now stocking our clubhouse. We're doing player of the game for the seniors with the company logo attached to it. And then, yeah, like I've also been submitting like fund donations for like change room updates, right? So now the change room is not just the senior men's change room, it's the so-and-so's change room. So things like that we've been working hard on. So
yeah, those are great ideas. Those are awesome ideas, and they're definitely you can just start seeing the snowball effect of like how many assets you could actually develop and have. And it's good to have these all documented in an inventory, because when you go start talking to a partner, they might say something, you're like, well, that would be funny to brand the toilet after, a towing company or something like that, right? And all of a sudden it becomes like a funny thing. People take photos of it or whatever, and all of a sudden that adds more value for them at the end of the day too, right? Another one I want you to consider as you're putting some of these assets together is how can you extend these assets outside of the scope of just game day or just the field of play. So, there's the typical media and Twitter and that kind of thing, but like, one of the ones we looked at for FireFit was actually hosting ahead of the events happening the week before, doing like an event with firefighters in the community at a bank, like outside a bank, where they're like signing things for kids, getting pictures, that kind of stuff. And it was actually a promotional tool for the event, but then it was a sponsorship opportunity too for the bank. And so, it drive sort of that community engagement piece and the affiliation. And at the end of the day, it would drive more people coming to the event, hopefully. So things like that. It's like, how can we extend the window of call it an event, which would be, say, the game day, to outside of just that couple hours.
And and now that you mentioned that, we have our 50th anniversary here at Titans in Alberta coming up. And we had a company sponsor that wanted to give us a barbecue, but then now they're actually volunteering. So their department's coming out and helping us out with the food. And then, so it's like now the engagement piece with it as well. So now we can like say Eagle Builders is here helping us out and come down. And that's another good point too, so.
Yeah, those are awesome ones when you can get it's like you get people to volunteer, help their businesses have engagement and get involved in the community, and they come to the games or come to the events and volunteer at them and brand their own thing, like their own pennies or whatever they're wearing or shirts that they're wearing. These are all, I love that idea. How are we doing on the first couple here? Identifying a couple asset categories, outlining a couple of them, and setting a value. Has everybody completed those so far? No.
One that's sort of interesting from a provincial level is that something I've put down is competition naming rights. What we've done in some of our rural, one of our rural regions, we put in an application with High Life Pork. Basically a play on the Timbits. It's like a little bacon bits. We're a big pork exporter. So they've initially said they think it's a funny idea. We'll see if they actually go for it. To put things in perspective, more than willing to sort of throw
Bacon Bits Junior Rugby.
Yeah,
Adorable.
exactly.
Manitoba pork.
Yeah, exactly. It's a high life, so they're looking at sort of potentially donating a bit of to that. So that's really cool. Fun
That's
little
fun.
things.
That's a fun spin.
Love it. That's a great story. Like those are those great intangible kind of assets that you can find, right? It's, and sometimes it is going the other way. So it's almost like starting with number 4 here and identifying a partner and being like, what would be something interesting that we could tell about them and like what they do, but like use these tangible assets we have to like, you know, promote that story. So it's like signage around the field, but there's a bigger story involved in it. And it's this, you know, pork bits rugby.
Or like naming your practice or game balls after something fun like that. If you have a sponsor that has a spin-off name that you can put their logo on it and say, yeah, this is our, yeah, bacon bit rugby ball. Okay. Yeah, I like that. I think my brain kind of works in that reverse order a bit sometimes too, especially when you're looking to brainstorm.
Yeah, I like it when you can get you can get this inventory set up. So when you do this with your club, is go through every possible asset you could think of, and then we always talked about it when we're doing these consulting projects. Is like these are the assets that you tell the story with, but the story itself is often this sort of intangible piece, and that's what like ties what the partner does into sort of your club or your organization. And like you said, Liz, that's taking it like inventory and then starting with the partner and then being like, what can we tell?
I like, would you like, I find sometimes too, just going backwards period. So for example, when I was thinking of ways to market the club, I thought of radio, but of course radio is expensive. So I approached the partnership and I was like, hey, we're a local club, you're a local radio station. Let's partner and figure something out. So now we're kind of doing promotion material for them, but then they're also flipping it. So it's kind of an in-kind partnership where we're promoting them through our signage on the field, but then we're also kind of getting free advertisement through them. So is that kind of what you're talking about from backwards, like 4 over?
Yeah, well, the media, any kind of media partner is excellent, whether it's a radio station, TV station, whatever it may be, or sometimes even it's just a partner that has a large, you know, following on Facebook, Twitter, you know, you name it, Instagram, whatever it may be, and that way you can utilize their network and promote the game or promote something within the like even a sponsor collaboration that you have with them. So that's, yeah, it's a great idea.
I like how you listed it being kind of that intangible part of stuff, like another way of looking at that barter system or that give and take system that you mentioned, Ashton, with the radio station. Yeah.
One of the cooler intangible ones that, you know, we were involved in as an organization was the Red Mittens campaign with the Vancouver Olympics, which I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with. And too bad with Lululemon making them too expensive now to buy. But it was, you know, that's a great example of a story that was created and people got behind it, and it, you know, it sort of did everything. It raised money for athletes, promoted the Olympics. It got people excited about, you know, being part of a community because they could all wear their red gloves. You know, so those kind of things are, you know, if you think of something like that, even for your club, and maybe it's not on that same scale, but, you know, having some kind of like, you know, merchandise or something like that, that's, you know, goes towards a good cause for the team or something like that. And, you know, getting a partner to donate merchandise and it's interesting color and it, you know, funds go towards, I don't know, kids rugby or something like that. You know, those are good opportunities too.
on that side, I know I'm still affiliated with Wanderers here in Winnipeg, and to, like you said, always like updating and changing what your inventory is. We had a longtime alumni that always just gave money to the club that we kind of used in background stuff. And this past year we'd said, hey, we're really want to get the kids in these t-shirts and each give them each their own youth rugby ball. Do you want your money to go towards that this year? And you know, he gave the money early this year because he's like, yeah, that would be great. So his logo went on the t-shirt and on the ball with, you know, with the club name. So it gave him more joy to see, you know, his money going to something very specific, tangible, as you said, that to try and pull out more of those alumni out to see what kind of philanthropic dollars they have to offer. Or, I mean, a lot of players are past alumni or small business owners. So it's a bonus way to market their company.
That's good. And sometimes a category exclusivity is one too. You know, it can be a pro and a con, right? You know, when you look at and we go for a category, you could say like construction companies or you know, financial institutions, or you know, beverage companies or alcoholic beverage companies. Like those would be a category. In some cases, you might want to actually have open to no category exclusivity and have multiple partners that are in there. But in others, you might want to have category exclusivity. But the value of that sponsorship would then be increased significantly.
I was just at a fundraiser actually this past weekend, and it was really, really well done. They do a really good job every year. It's not for a club specifically, it's actually for a facility here. And one thing that they've done that it would be interesting to see the rugby twist on that is that they get they work with like they had Edmonton Elk, for example, or used to be called the Edmonton Eskimos. They had a couple of them come down and they actually got paid by their own organization to be there as like a community outreach thing. So they didn't actually have to even pay them to show up, and they got raffled off to sit at that table during dinner. And so it was like a business would pay, and like one of the guys, he got sold for like $3,500 just to sit and have dinner with the table. And so like stuff like that is, I don't know, we just kind of got to sometimes think outside of the box and be like, okay, who else can we bring in? And like literally they just got to drink for the night and got food and then got paid from their own organization. So it's hardly any money out of that pocket. So like just kind of thinking of like, okay, who do we have in-house even? Like if we look at some of our past Canada players or like, I don't know, other people in the community, there might be some people that are like willing to even show up on a voluntary basis or something like that. So just thinking of other ways to, I don't know, get other organizations involved too. So, but.
Great idea. Love that. I can give you a good story on that. I one time was asked to get raffled off on a Valentine's Day thing at a pub, and they set it on the same night as something else going on, and literally nobody showed up to this event. So I got to drink for free all night, but didn't have to get raffled off. So that was pretty good.
So that's when it pays to be the volunteer, but not necessarily be the fundraiser.
Yeah.
Mitch, how do you, I guess, prove the value of a jersey? Or again, that's the thing I keep coming back to is like, I always think about jerseys and kit. And so how do I go back to my sponsor year 4, year 5 and say, you know what, t-shirts have been doing great. I guess, how do I extend that or make it a bit more evergreen in certain sponsorship maybe?
Yeah, so you're talking about like the return on investment for a partner to put their logo on your jersey and spend whatever $10,000 to do that or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or what? Yeah, how can I prove to them that it's actually that money, or give it a better breakdown maybe?
Yeah, it's a great question, and this is something that honestly, even at the large organizations, they really struggle with, and most aren't good at this. So at the very local level, it's a lot harder too. There is some ranges for what a sign would be worth based on per impression, and then you can start using that to say like, okay, we had 10,000 people come out to our games over the course of the year. We have this many logos on our jerseys that had an impression, start doing the math on that and being like, this is roughly what it should be worth. So that's one way you can do it. You can also just try to find other comparables that are out there. And this actually might be a good exercise, actually, Patrick, for you or somebody to lead and to help out clubs is, understand what are people selling assets for at your club. Not to say they have to be exact across all the different clubs, but are somebody selling for 5,000 and somebody selling for 100? Like, that's a huge discrepancy. So I think there might be ways to sort of share some best practices across clubs so that people are putting out at the right kind of level. But yeah, Peter, I built a whole analytics tool when I was with the 2010 group. It took me about like 3 months to put together, doing all this research and whatnot. And it's pretty good, but at the end of the day, it's only as accurate as the inputs that you can have in it. There is an organization, I don't know if they still do this, but it's called Elevent. It's like LELEVENT. They used to have a free sponsorship valuation tool available on their website. This was a number of years ago. I don't know if they still do it, but that's one to check out.
Right on. No, that sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, Mitchell, like using that jersey and Peter using the jersey as an example, what I have found over the years is the sponsorship dollars is just like you said, it's based on what is my cost? Are we looking at multiple investors in the cost of that jersey? Is it a solo logo that you're going to get the money from to pay for that jersey? Are you looking just to pay for that one strip of jerseys? Are you looking at topping it up? So the extra dollars that come in just kick back into the club. So bottom line is, what is the cost for me to put this jersey, to make this jersey, whether it's just with, the team logo, a number, and the logo of the sponsor. Great. That's what we're doing, right? That's where you said the categorizing exclusivity or not. So I don't know about other provinces, but I found here in Manitoba, most companies that are doing it rather be exclusive on the jersey for the club. They want to see it across the chest or see it like it needs to be bold, because we don't have, it's kind of like bang for your buck, because we don't have the population density to really get the name out there otherwise, if that makes sense.
I can suggest something I saw on social media that was quite good was Dan Meikle sharing the Red Deer Titans sponsorship package. I thought that was really well put together. So plug Red Deer. Well worth checking out their social media for their package.
That's what Ashton does all that.
We are going to steal that.
well, thank you. I was just about to add, I'm currently working on jersey sponsorship. That's been a tough one. But yeah, like we sold out our field sponsorship really quickly. I was quite surprised. So we added this jersey advertisement, but I find kind of the value to it, and what I put emphasis in is the volume and the area. So like a lot of the larger corporations, I'll say like, okay, our youth program has 300 players, but we play in Calgary and Red Deer every weekend or every other weekend. So now it's not only just a local, but now it's a range that's broadened out. So it's not just you being advertised on our field, you're being advertised now in Calgary. So like those are the big benefits there as well, I find anyway.
What are you how much money are you trying to get for your jerseys sponsor?
Well, that was what we did is we just looked at the cost of the jerseys, how much, and then we divvied it up. So for each set of jerseys, we have either a sleeve logo, a lower back, or a chest. And we deemed the chest the highest because it's the one you see most often in any of our photos. I always see a chest logo. Sleeve is next because you're going to see it when they're running. And then lower back is the cheapest because you typically don't see it unless maybe they're in a scrum and you're in the right position to see it, or if they're in a ruck and you're in the right position.
We do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's usually depending on what we're doing, but it's like a 750 or 1,500 range per location, right? To try to get it covered, and then you get about 2,500, $3,000 out of it.
Yeah, and
that'll buy the kit.
The big thing we do too is like the time frame. So for example, our youth ones last a lot longer. So the dollar value is higher for them because the turnaround is not very short, right? So like for our youth, you're guaranteed advertisement for 5 years, whereas our seniors, you're guaranteed for 2 years because let's face it, seniors wreck them faster. So the cost value is now lower for the 2-year to kind of entice them to do that and to stay on. Because then they're looking at it and going, okay, I can pay $1,000 for a sleeve for the youth, but I get it for 5 years for over 300 youth between Red Deer and Calgary, or I pay $850 for senior men and women sleeve, but I get it for 2 years and they play in Calgary, Edmonton, and Red Deer.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of trying to balance between what you need, but putting their head on. That's kind of what I always do. I put their cap on and I go, okay, if I was them, what would I want? And what
are you, it sounds like you're doing a really good job finding like good corporate sponsors. Like, but are these links through your rugby club, or are you going out there and soliciting Red Deer companies like out externally?
It's a little bit both. It's a little bit both. So like kind of what Mitchell was saying, first thing I did was I went to old sponsorship, and then you go into your club, you go to your board, you go to your club members who can help. I'm very thankful that I'm an employment specialist here in Red Deer and I work with employer partnerships. So that's kind of my big ticket is I do know that employers that are doing well, and I've approached them. But then also doing just Google searches and going to the corporate levels and seeing who has funding opportunities and just filling out as many applications as I can that align with what the club and what they're looking for as well.
You just work the entire room, just solicit, right? Like
I'm sorry, Mitchell. I didn't mean to steal this.
Well, sorry. No, I'm just seeing if we're like we do the same thing, but like making sure we're kind of aligned. But like we work our alumni to death and milk them for everything they're worth, and then we try to expand out. And like you need to make sure that we're not pissing them off and bleeding them dry, and they're getting value on their money, right? And you ruin relationships, that you ruin your reputation, and then good luck.
It's definitely a give and take relationship. You have to give them as much as they're giving you. So that's just what we're trying to do.
We actually have to give them more.
Yeah.
Right?
We need to say, what can we do for you to keep them coming back?
One thing that Ashton is really good at too, that I'll just mention that I kind of learned from her too, that is just like the amount of follow-up is so important, and just like calling them and being like, hey, you got my email, right? And then like following up, and that's been apparently super helpful. I don't know, but yeah.
Awesome. I'm loving the discussion here, because I think this is like the valuable stuff that you can take away from today. So does anybody want to share maybe a creative asset they developed out of their asset inventory here, and some valuations they put beside it, and there's a story associated with it?
I hijacked some of Ashton's, like getting the beer man of the match, the room naming and stuff. Those are all opportunities that you just have to put resources to get them going, right? Yeah. But I haven't valued them.
Ashton,
sorry, go ahead, Peter.
I was just going to ask, were you, and maybe this isn't something you've thought of, were you able to I don't know, work with Google Maps and actually put the name on your field that way? I don't know if you even thought about that. It just popped in my head that Is that a way you, and maybe they don't do it, but could you say to the sponsor, hey, you're on our Google Maps, and if someone Googles Red Deer Titans, it's that field A is got it listed. I don't know. Just a crazy half-baked idea.
So you could.
I'm not that familiar with Google, but I'm sure with a Google search, Google could tell me if Google can do that for me. So that's a good idea though, for sure.
Yeah, I like that. It's really out of the box. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you just for info on that, if you go to the Google Maps and you click on the location, there should somewhere on that listing for the location, it should have like a button of like, is this your location? That you can click on and it will let you do stuff like that. Former job of mine that we were having to update wanted to actually have our business information updated properly on Google Maps. So that's the road that we went down.
We might confuse some people because one of them is a hotel chain. So we might end up with some campers.
Cool. Any other assets you wanted to share and any evaluations you put beside them?
Not quite sure what the valuation for it is, but increasingly games are recorded and posted on posted on social media, YouTube, those kind of things. It's a fairly simple process to put an overlay on it. Put some sponsorship information in the description or something along those lines. Probably started in something around, at a provincial level, we've got a league. So, it's a match, a league sponsor partnership, perhaps with the naming rights to the agreement, which I suspect be in the thousands of dollars ballpark, but, something I'm going to have a play with.
There you
go. With here in Manitoba, Patrick, you just reminded me, like with our youth development expanding, is last year we did jamborees. We had so many jamborees set up. It'd be great for us to have, like Manitoba Pork Jamboree is June 5th, Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries, Manitoba, or whatever, massage therapies jamboree this weekend. I think we can try getting some more sponsorships like that to get that out, and or like you said, incorporating like whoever it was that had the sponsorship out in front of the bank, doing part of the sponsorship with the bank or for the bank. Well, yeah, having that company come out and have a tent or a table out during that jamboree to show their support for youth rugby, but also have information for people there should they be interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
I don't know if other clubs do this, or like if they have like YouTube channels where they broadcast their games and stuff. That could also, it just kind of came to me, that could also be a way to for promotion, right? During halftime, like throwing up your sponsor's logo, or like game day match sponsorships. I don't know if clubs actually televise their games on YouTube or anything like that. I just was curious.
There's an organization called Send to News. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're out of Victoria actually, but and I don't know what the minimum size of organization they'd work with, but they did some cool stuff where they'd actually brand the content that was created at a game. So if you say you're watching the highlight reels for a game between two clubs or something like that, it's getting on the news, they would actually brand that. So it went on the news. The brand would actually be like embedded in the content when it's sent to the news. And so the partner actually gets an extended benefit from it there, which is pretty cool. It was like a lot of regional hockey teams and stuff like that were using it as a way to add partnership dollars.
So that's just basically packaging a highlights package and then sending it off to global news or something like that. And that's a really clever idea.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff.
I like that because Patrick, I can't remember the name of the company that you started using for Manitoba here to video the games, right? So that they can be posted. I found years back when we had a bit of a relationship with CBC, it's like we'd throw information their way so they didn't have to go looking for it. Be like, oh, here, you can throw this in your sports section or on the 6 o'clock or whatever. So now that everything is so much, I mean, this is 25 years ago. Like, so now it's like everything is so fast and mainstream online. So to have that video clip, I don't know if we can use those nuggets from that videotaping to zap off to the local, like you said, that would be fantastic.
I just was thinking of this too, for our 50th anniversary celebration we're having at the end of June. We're hoping to do like a golf tournament on the Friday. You can like auction off a hole and then the companies can come join like your club members, like the Titans, for the golf tournament, right? So it's like extra incentive. And then, you know, all like boys do, we just get some bids going. You can get a hole in one, and like that just adds extra fire to the flame, right?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, anything like that is awesome. And the hosting aspect of it is huge too, right? It's the opportunity for businesses through your club or your organization to connect with each other and maybe do business. There's a benefit right there to partners.
One other one that we were looking at was doing swag bags, even just for like the, like, you know, the like little shoulder tote things, and doing 2 different kinds so that it's not too much to ask for one company to ask for like 200 coupons or something, because that can be a little taxing. So it's like for the smaller sponsorships that don't want to quite like pay, like, I don't know, say like Booster Juice or like the local Dairy Queen or something like that, they like throw a coupon into the swag bag and it's part of the kit. And then we'll just do one for like U5 to U11 and then 11 to 18 is a different one, so that it's not too demanding on certain companies, because again, we just don't want to like push companies too far. And then they can actually like sponsor the bag itself and have a logo on it as another one. So that was something that we're also going to be trying to do. But
yeah, that's awesome. You could even extend from swag bags. It could be like even at games or something like that when they're coming in, is, you know, partners get to have the opportunity to put like a coupon code or a discount or something like that if they come buy a burger at the local burger shop or whatever it is. Just different ways to drive traffic back to their stores, which is ultimately going to Peter's comment earlier. How do you show the return on investment of it? Is, you know, if they're bringing in a coupon code for something, it's like, great, this is how much business actually went directly back to your store afterwards. All right, Patrick, you wanna, over to you maybe. I think we're probably close to wrapping up unless there's any other questions or thoughts or comments.
I guess last round of comments while we got Mitch here. And
yeah, I have a quick question, Mitch. For a club that doesn't have many assets, is it better to keep going back to the same well and saying we don't need jerseys this year, but we do need balls? Or is it better to go to a new sponsor rather than trying to wear out that other sponsor saying we need this, but not, you know, it's not as urgent?
Yeah, I would definitely look at expanding the number of partners that you'd have involved, and also like getting creative with assets that you'd have too, right? Like we talked about a lot of them today. I think the simple ones, you know, as Liz mentioned earlier around signage, there's a million different types of signage that you could have in your field. That's like the lowest hanging fruit. But I think there's lots of businesses that if you understand what they're looking for, whether it's driving traffic into their burger shop or the local Subway, you know, if it's lead generation for a construction company, just understanding like what matters to them and then developing an asset or combining assets to solve something that's their challenge, you know? Or it's like going back to that, putting the plumbing companies on the toilets thing. It's like, try and make it humorous even too. And that gets people like interested in it. But like, hey, you put another $500 or $1,000 in your club's pocket at the end of the year because you branded the toilets. Why not? That sounds pretty good to me.
Things for sale.
Branding the toilets ends up paying for the balls that you need to play with.
Yeah. Does that help there, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, my other one was just what's the best way to hand off a sponsorship? So our club is quite small and we don't have our own clubhouse and stuff like that. But we usually have one person that reaches out to a company and develops the relationship. But then when that one person doesn't then go back to that company, we then lose the sponsorship. So is there a strategy or the best way to hand off a sponsorship to someone else in the club?
So are you meaning like the relationship itself, or going from once you've sold a sponsorship for somebody to actually like implement the sponsorship?
So maintaining the relationship, I would say.
Yeah.
When they're used to the one person over and over again, and then that one person either leaves or can't do it anymore, what's the best way to not scare the company and say, like, you know, how do you maintain that relationship?
Yeah, I think one of the simple tools is just having like a CRM in place, and it can be as simple as having an Excel spreadsheet. And so, you know, that person that had that relationship puts a couple notes in, who's the lead person they talk to all the time, what's a couple things about them they know, you know, what restaurant do you take them out to for, you know, for a coffee or whatever it is, you know, as you're talking about sponsors. So just that way the relationship doesn't die with the person who leaves your organization. You have that tracked somewhere and other people have access to it. And then so there's that sort of like longevity of the relationship. And it'll also help you going like understanding, you know, how long has that relationship been in place? How much have they spent with your club already? If there's any way to get feedback from them on how to improve the relationship, you know, these are all good pieces of information that it'd be great to have in hand. And honestly, like a little Google sheet or something like that is a great way to just track this information. And then, you know, if you have a team of, you know, if it's one person, that's pretty easy. But if you have a team of 2 or 3 people, then you also know, you know, you're not stepping on each other's toes by reaching out to the same company for a sponsorship, and then everybody looks kind of silly at the end of the day.
Yeah, that has happened before. It's just so I don't know the jargon. What's CRM?
Customer relationship management tool, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's the acronym. I could be wrong on it.
One more thing that I'll throw in on that, just to tie it back to our succession planning stuff all the way from week 1, is if you have the opportunity with that outgoing person to download that information directly to their successor, they can also take the time to do a warm introduction with a new person to the sponsor. Not like the Excel sheet's perfect. It's great to have. I recommend that over and over again. But if you can put that personal touch on it, if you do have that overlap, I know a lot of our organizations struggle with that. That's why we keep emphasizing succession planning. But if you do have the opportunity where your outgoing person and your incoming person can have that overlap, doing an warm in-person introduction is fantastic. Even an email is better than nothing too, right?
Thanks, guys.
Another one thing when you're going in to sell sponsorships that you know, from personally, like I've always tried to do, and with the consulting companies I've been with, this we always do it, is have like even a short PowerPoint deck. You know, lots of visuals in it, and that, like, those pictures allow these partners to kind of feel what it would actually be like, versus just, you know, send them an email like, do you want to sponsor us, our organization, we're going to do blah 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 blah, like that's fine. But if there's a way to make it a little more visual, you know, the picture is worth 1,000 words, as they say, right? So
excellent. Thanks again, Mitch. Really appreciate you giving up your time, and I think everyone out of that, especially just giving people the opportunity to sort of share what they're doing. And
yeah, thanks for having me, Patrick. Really appreciate it, and nice to meet everybody. And feel free to ping me if you have any questions afterwards too.
Awesome. And sadly to everybody else, this sort of concludes the this year's series. Obviously, sort of attendance has sort of dropped off a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but thanks everyone for sticking around. I know, you know, particularly got to thank Andrew for a lot of his behind the scenes work. Pete, Jordan, Claude, and Brianne as well have contributed with and leveraging their network to bring some great presenters on. I think we've hopefully provided some pretty cool people that have had some great expertise that I hope you guys have taken a lot out of. So by all means, we'll be sort of following up in the next sort of week or so. Obviously, it's a little more challenging this year than last year because we're all planning for seasons now, but I mean, all the best, and I hope to see all of you in every province across the summer. So yeah, from behalf of me and sort of organising group, thanks very much for attending, and look forward to a good season.